Welcome to Norse Code, the number one podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. I'm your host, producer. My name is James Pagashnik. Thank you guys so much for listening. And at the other end of the tin cannon string, we have our analyst and co-host. You know him from numerous blogs and podcasts around the internet, most notably from the Wide Left Substack. He is Mr. Useful Human, Arif Hassan. Arif, I'm going to need a ruling on that Tua interception. Just how big of an oof was that moment? Was this just like a large size oof? Was this an Olympic swimming pool size oof, or was it somehow bigger?
I would actually say I'm going to restrict it to the Olympic sized oof. I don't think it could be bigger because I don't know that it's going to matter at the end of the season. I don't know that the Dolphins are going to be in a spot where that loss is going to be meaningful for them in any way. So it could have been a bigger oof. They did. They got the moral victory on their way to an 0-3 record.
Always important. Any chance you have an opportunity to do that, you must.
Yeah. So I checked in with a Dolphins friend who mostly spent the entire game crashing out in a group chat, which is crazy because they'd actually played this one close, which is like just really funny. And I was wondering if the Patriots game was also a moral victory, right? Because I was like really close. You got the lead in the fourth quarter, right? Before obviously losing it on literally the next play. And he, after a lot of colorful language, said that no, the Patriots game did not qualify as a moral victory. So they're 1-2 in the moral standings and 0-3 in the NFL standings. So they're going to need a lot more moral victories before they make the moral playoffs. The thing is, I don't do the Bills get to count this as a moral loss though? Like, I don't know that they do.
I wouldn't think so. Although I do have a question about the moral playoffs. Does the reseeding rule apply there as well, or is it just in the?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. If you score a moral victory against a higher seeded opponent, the way that the playoffs would advance is that you don't necessarily go up against a morally lower seeded opponent. That would just be immoral, as it were. So you have to reseed so that you all constantly get like top versus bottom seed.
That truly does make it the bad place. I appreciate that. I think that really works. And with that revelation, welcome to this episode of Norse Code. We hope you guys are all doing well. The Vikings are going to play the Bengals this Sunday, and we are doing our best to prepare for it, whether it is performing the interview that Arif conducted earlier today, which we'll get to in a moment, or just bracing ourselves for the fact that Carson Wentz will be wearing a Vikings uniform and taking snaps under center. A thing that Arif is under. I think the only thing that would be worse is if like Chad Greenway was encouraging it. Like, is there a way we could just include all of the bits in one? Like, can we have Avril / Melissa in attendance while this is going on? While I'm using an outdoor oven and like, yeah, can we? How many bits can we just get going at one time? Ben DiNucci tweets about the game during it. Case Cookus finally reaches out and says hello. Like,
do we count Kyle Sloter as a bit or just like a recurring character?
More of a recurring character, I think, at this point.
Yeah. Then someone would have to cast a spell, perhaps commissioned via Etsy.
A thing you can do, apparently.
Yeah, I think we've learned.
It's super effective.
It's both possible and, extremely, extremely effective. Beyond our ken in some ways. There's like a couple of ways we can combine all these bits and callbacks. For people who have not yet joined the Patreon, because every listener is just a patron waiting to happen, of course.
Wow. That didn't even come from me.
Yeah, which is crazy. In our Discord, we did just kind of do a lot of reminiscing in the Norse Code Brains channel of all of our bit. We try to catalog the bits. Someone asked for a wiki, which we've been actually talking about for about 5 years or something now.
Closer to 10, yeah.
Yeah, long-time listeners know. And then that just kind of I'm not going to say devolved or spiraled, but kind of trailed into just reminiscing about old episodes. I am shocked that there are listeners who've like actually listened to the mythical episode 8 where all the bits have started, maybe even episode 3, and have stayed with this show all the way through the 12 years? I don't know, man.
Yes,
12 years? 13?
It's 12 years.
Okay, great. I know time. I'm great at time.
Median age is not so much, but time, yes.
Well, I'm correct about the median age.
Oh, I need to include that in the list. Okay, let me.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah. You got to put that in the list. But yeah, so we've got listeners who have memories of these awful episodes spoken through terrible headset mics. Appreciate you, and if you want to like kind of catch up on what all of that stuff is, head over to the Discord. And only one way to do that: become a patron.
So patreon.com/NorseCode is the best way to do it. $3.50 a month or a little less for the year subscription. Gets you access to the Discord, bonus episodes, all of that. So check it out. Yeah, we had some fun, and I opened it up to everyone. I was like, come on, you people have a better memory than Arif for sure.
People.
And probably a better memory than I do. And we got some gold that came in there, and some descriptions came out of it as well. So check that out, patreon.com/NorseCode. You can also go to paypal.me/NorseCode as well for a one-time donation, or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com for any number of wonderful pieces of Norse Code merchandise. Just a special thank you to Winston Taylor for signing up over on Patreon. Thank you so much. And let's get started. We're going to go to an interview that Arif conducted earlier today. This is a preview of the Bengals game that he taped with Jake Liscow with Locked On Bengals. We're going to go to this interview, and we'll be back for the mailbag in just a moment.
All right, I am here with Jake Liscow of Locked On Bengals. I think I was on your podcast to discuss how clutch Joe Burrow was last year, right? Well, right. I was on your podcast last year to discuss broadly how clutch Joe Burrow has been.
Yeah, and very, very clutch right now. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, that's why I brought you on. I wanted to discuss more Joe Burrow, as I'm sure you wanted to talk about JJ McCarthy. So both of our franchises are in very familiar places for their fan bases, which is in a pool of misery. How are we feeling about that?
Yeah, miserable. It's great.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, the tracks.
We're back to 2023, and
I don't. But like you won week 1. So how sad can you be? You won week 1. So like, what are you complaining about?
At what cost? What did it cost? Thanos got meme, you know.
So that was the first week 1 win since like 2019. Or something like it's been a while.
Yeah, so it was the second win in week 1 in the Zach Taylor era period.
Oh,
and
wow.
the first 2-0 start in the Zach Taylor era with the Cincinnati Bengals. The first time they've won in week 2 since pre-Zach Taylor. And they're looking for their first 3-0 start since I think 2015.
I was going to say like 2015 is probably the season. Okay, that makes sense. Man, whatever happened to that Marvin Lewis character? He was a pretty good coach. So
yeah, you know, he didn't win a playoff game, so there's that. But at least he can win games in week 1 and 2.
Maybe you could just like swap him in and out, like kind of.
Yeah.
All right.
Regular season coach, postseason coach, regular head coach rotation. That's, you know, a normal.
Yeah, right.
Thing
Like, you know, like it's kind of like the saying, like when you have 2 quarterbacks, that's awesome. When you have 2 coaches, that's cool and awesome. Let's talk about like we always do on the show when we have a guest on. We talk about the personnel groupings of the opposing team, and of course, the Bengals are supposed to be led by Joe Burrow, who suffered turf toe, which, as I explained in last week's episode, is a lot worse than it sounds. And he's out until December until he is like a freaky foot guy. Take a look at it, right?
They're hoping that it's 3 months, I think. And I think that 3-month timeline is honestly a little optimistic from what I know about turf toe from my conversations with medical
because he has like a
professionals.
grade 3, right? So it's just a complete tear of the ligament.
Yeah, it's a type that requires surgery. Patrick Mahomes notably played through turf toe in those 2020 playoffs until they lost the Super Bowl, and then had that surgery 3 days after the Super Bowl. And then he wasn't back for a good 4 months. Like, he was back. So they had the surgery 3 days after the Super Bowl, which was early February that year. And then he was back for, quote, some stuff in OTAs at the end of May. And then he was full go for training camp. But of course, that's much later. So we don't know, obviously, the differences in the injuries in terms of like foot bone involvement, tendon involvement, more than just the ligament that we are pretty sure tore, because turf toe, being what it is kind of a broad strokes diagnosis. Like, it's one of those not very precise medical terms that you hear, like, where you a lot of times take, for example,
you're telling me turf toe is not like the most precise medical textbook terminology we have?
It's crazy, right? But it's similar to like an ACL tear, and then they go in and they find that actually it's also like there's patella involvement, and then multiple other ligament involvement, and then maybe there's a bone issue somewhere too. So
bodies, man, it's so annoying when they have like stuff.
Yeah, I don't like when I have to whip out anatomical knowledge for covering football teams. Usually that means something bad has happened.
Right, yeah. It's exactly what happened with JJ McCarthy last year, and I guess this year, I don't know, man. So that puts us into the spotlight with, is he the best backup quarterback in the NFL? Jake Browning, top 5? What do we think? Is it all hype? What do we think? Former Viking.
Best backup. I mean, I don't know how good Jake Browning is. I do know that he produces when he replaces.
Right.
Joe
Okay.
Burrow,
So that was actually
that
was kind of fundamentally my genuine question there, which is, we've seen a lot of good production from him when he's had to play. But we also, like, for brief moments, had really good production from Joshua Dobbs and Chase Daniel. And these were guys that, were really good at some of the specific aspects of the role, especially Chase Daniel, as like all of the other parts of being a back quarterback. But the best backup quarterback in the NFL, in theory, is somebody who probably should start if it weren't for some crappy team starting some rookie or whatever, right? And that doesn't feel like Jake Browning to me. So like, what is the distinction in your mind between how productive he has been and how talented you perceive him to be?
Well, he still has the same skill players that Joe Burrow has, right? And then it devolves into this frothing online debate about how Joe Burrow is a Jamar Chase and T. Higgins merchant, which, like, anybody that watches actual football can tell that there's a significant difference in these quarterbacks. But the offense changes a little bit for Jake Browning. Jake Browning can turn his back to the defense more comfortably than Joe Burrow can turn his back to the defense. And he's going to get the ball out quickly. And they're going to design the offense a little bit differently to take something off of Jake Browning's plate. You go back to the first game Jake Browning started after Joe Burrow got hurt, and they essentially tried to run the Joe Burrow offense against the Pittsburgh Steelers with Jake Browning at quarterback. And it was an abject disaster. And then they realized, we actually don't have Joe Burrow at quarterback. We need to take something off our quarterback's plate. And I think Timo from PFF had a great point about this, where like the Joe Burrow offense works and is scalable because Joe Burrow can just drop back forever and be fine and be good.
Yeah, that was a really good thread. He's like, you can do this 50 times a game or 5 times a game, and it just goes.
And most quarterbacks, when they need to just straight drop back pass, and this is evident, and I just looked at this because Trevor Lawrence's split against the Bengals in week 2 is crazy. Like, when he's in screen and play action game, looks like a good quarterback. And when he's straight drop back, the numbers are, I don't know, Daniel Jones pre-Indianapolis Colts, like they're bad. But with Jake Browning replacing Joe Burrow, you're going to probably see more of that screen game. That Joe Burrow, for whatever reason, screen game not very effective. I think you probably see more play action. I think they try to emphasize the run game a little bit more, although I think the Bengals organizationally just deprioritize the run game to their detriment, to the point that it's really put their pass protection in grave danger. And then, more of Joe Burrow's extending plays, right? And that's part of what's led to some of these injuries, is he's trying to extend plays. They get into a 2nd and 20, and Joe Burrow doesn't want to just throw the ball over Jamar Chase's head. When Jamar Chase gets jammed on a quick game play, he's trying to escape the pocket and then ends up unable to escape the pocket, and the pocket's muddy, and then he takes a hit, and otherwise pedestrian hit, gets hurt. But it's just how he plays. He's trying to extend the play, right? Browning has some of that, but is more pocket oblivious than Joe Burrow, which I think many quarterbacks are, but it will show up at times where he will get blindsided or just look like a sitting duck and an unaware player. But generally the ball comes out quicker He's just getting rid of the ball. Sometimes that leads to interceptions. Go watch the Jacksonville game for some examples of that. But the one thing Browning does do well, at least has done well, is beat the blitz. And that was also true against Jacksonville, another team that, like I'm expecting from the Vikings this week, likes to put a bunch of guys on the front and say, hey, offensive line quarterback, figure out who's coming and get the ball out and protect it. And Browning, to his credit, shredded the Jags when they blitzed last week. But it's when you get pressure with the 4-man rush that he had severe issues. And obviously that's possible with the state of the Bengals offensive line.
So if I find this interesting because aside from Jared Goff, which is a pretty notable distinction given that they're in the division, a lot of quarterbacks with really good blitz versus unblitzed splits. So people like Justin Herbert, right? Or Aaron Rodgers, do really poorly specifically against the Vikings blitz. And some of that is probably because at the time, the Vikings blitz approach was fairly new, 4 high zone coverages, not really a fire zone in the same way, kind of different underneath looks. And it's
a lot of green dog blitz stuff, right? That's like the Brian Flores signature, or do I misunderstand?
Well, it's changed right over the years. So in 2023, there weren't that many green dog blitzes. It was a bunch of send 6. And while you might characterize like, hey, whichever one's on this side of the center and the center turns, you might characterize that as a green dog blitz. And I think that might be fair. I think classically we would call that something like based off of whether or not the running back releases into a pattern, right? Okay. And that's not what was happening. And so they were sending 6 a lot. Now that they send 5 a lot more this year, I don't really know kind of what the blitzing schema is, what the rule is for whether or not to send a blitzer. And my intuition might just be that Ivan Pace just kind of makes a choice, which is, okay. But that does kind of, it's fun. It does kind of change things, and it does kind of make things a little bit more chaotic for the quarterback because it's like, oh, well, if the running back stays in, I know what to expect. No, that's not how that seems to work at all. But yeah, we're through 2 weeks, so who's to say what tells kind of exist within the offense? So I'm taking a look at when was the last time Jake Browning played like a significant snaps? Was it 23? 23,
and they played the Vikings that year, and Brian Flores, according to PFF, blitzed Jake Browning 55% of the time in that game, 54% of the time in that game.
That rules. And so I'm looking at yards per attempt versus the blitz. Screw it. I'm at PFF. Might as well just use PFF grade, right? And Jake Browning, 85.1 PFF grade versus the blitz, 7.9 yards per attempt. That's such a Jake Browning stat to be top 6 in PFF grade and still not crack 8 yards an attempt.
Sure.
And then let's see, we'll take a look at it. What week was that in 23 that they played, like 13, something like that?
Week 15.
15. I was close.
Really
I have
close.
Bad memories, so I'm pretty happy with getting that close.
Just as close as Joe Burrow's big toe is supposed to be if the ligament was intact.
There you go.
That joke didn't work as well as the previous Joe Burrow jokes I made.
Don't worry, they can't all hit, kind of like Jake Browning. 83.2 PFF grade against the Vikings split, so 8.6 yards per attempt. So good for him. He's worked out that 23 blitz scheme. We'll see kind of how that translates into 25. But given kind of the fact that the Vikings don't press very much at the line of scrimmage, don't play a ton of man coverage, and they've seen Jake Browning beat their blitz before. So all of this could be subject to change. But the current understanding of the Vikings defense continues to remain high zones, blitzes. It seems like they invite these short throws really quick for slants. And when they have Edger Van Ginkel, they do a pretty good job of anticipating where that throw is going to go and disrupting it. That's how they got Aaron Rodgers last year. And Van Ginkel is probably likely to play. He's coming off the concussion protocol. But I don't trust a bunch of 5'10 corners to tackle T. Higgins and Jamar Chase on slant routes. And I feel like you're confident about this in a way that I am not confident. We match, I think, on this one.
Yeah, I think that if the plan is to give up slants to Jamar Chase, that's playing with fire. We've watched him time after time take a ball to the house because guys can't tackle him, and he just ends up pinballing off of some guys sometimes. But at the same time, just to continue to harken back to that 2013 Week 15 game, That week it was mostly Jake Browning killing it in the intermediate part of the field. 7 for 8 on passes targeted in the 10 to 19 yard range of the field for 15 points. Just about 16 yards per attempt, which when you're completing 90% of your passes to the intermediate part of the field for 16 yards per attempt, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's not the worst thing in the world. You'll take that.
The short game that week, not as effective for them. Like completion percentages there, as you would expect. But just 6.6 yards per attempt. I mean, you probably take that. You're probably looking for a little bit more from your guys after the catch. And that's T. Higgins, Noah Fant are probably the two guys they're thinking about for yard after catch guys. T. Higgins did I say T? I meant Jamar and Noah Fant. T. Higgins has added a little bit of run after catch to his game. Mike Gesicki doesn't really give you much there. Andre Yosevich can, but it's not clear to me that he has a role in this offense so far this year. We'll see how that changes or doesn't with Jake Browning. But on paper, I would think that you would get a similar approach that the Bengals gave you in the pass game in 2013, like a much higher percentage of screen and play action than you get with Joe Burrow. 13% play action dropbacks for Browning in that game, 15% screen dropbacks for Jake Browning in that game. Those numbers are both much, much higher than you would often see with Joe Burrow, even though the play action number isn't that high compared to many NFL offenses, especially the screen game. So we'll see how those adjustments go this week in the passing game. But a big deal is going to be how they can run the ball or not, because the Bengals run game has been the worst in the NFL through 2 weeks.
Really interesting. I do want to talk about that in a second. I kind of want to dig into this receiver group for just a bit more before we do that. Yeah. Which is, hey, do we think this is the tallest receiver room in the NFL? Because there's nobody below 5'11".
I guess I don't track receiver height as closely as
you
do.
I was just going through the roster and I was like, wait, Yoshivas is like a tall dude. Jamar Chase is like at least 6 feet tall. He plays like he's flat. He plays like he's 6'4", but he's like 6 feet tall, right? Mitchell Tinsley, I was surprised to learn, is 5'11". And does Charlie Jones take snaps? Is that? Not so far. I mean, you're going to see a lot of Yoshi and T and a little bit of Tinsley. They seem to like Tinsley's run blocking, and so he's earned himself some opportunities. And is Jermaine Burton up on his rent, or what's going on there? He's just not active. I mean, he got hurt in training camp, and I think Mitch Tinsley surpassed him. I mean, go back to week 2 preseason. Did you see the Mitch Tinsley highlights, Arif? I did. I quote tweeted them, man. They were crazy. It's crazy. They're crazy. I don't care who you're playing against. Those are crazy plays to make. And then he goes out and does it on his first NFL target in a regular season game and goes up for a one-handed toe tap, knee tap touchdown. So I called that a catch of the year candidate, and a bunch of Lions fans got mad at me because of Isaac Tesla. And look, I looked at all 3 of these catches, the 2 Tesla catches and the Tinsley catch. And I'm going to be honest, man. The Tinsley catch, holy crap, dude! That's my favorite out of those 3. Oh my god! And the story is so great for him. Like 2 years grinding on a practice squad, finally makes a 53, and then like highlight after highlight in his limited time so far. That rules. So the receiver group and the skill set of this receiver group, especially without like a Tyler Boyd type guy, seems to kind of define the nature of this scheme. Is it meant for kind of like a bunch of contesteds, or is that just a thing they happen to be good at? Like, is it something they design around that particular skill set, or is it just like, oh, well, we have this available to us, so we'll use it when we need it? They do with Joe when he's a quarterback, because his ball placement and accuracy is, I want to say, unparalleled. I don't think anyone's at his level with those 2 particular attributes of quarterbacking. And when he's going well, his timing, I think when the ball comes out, where the ball goes, is just what makes him considered a consensus top 4 quarterback in the NFL. With Browning, you'll get some of that. Like if you give Jake Browning a one-on-one, and we just saw this last week, if you show 0, or even if you're keeping a guy back and you're sending 6 and you're manned up outside on one of these guys, he'll take a shot. And you trust T. Higgins and Jamar Chase win those. I mean, think about the game. What was it? I guess it wasn't the game-winning play. Was it the game-winning play? The T. Higgins stretch over the pylon that was just like a YOLO ball? Oh, my God. The last time these teams played, do you remember this play? Yeah, I think it was the game-winning play. So he'll throw that ball up.
I mean, he'll trust those guys in contested situations, but I do think that is largely a feature of, we think our skill guys are better than your skill guys, and our quarterback is going to put the ball wherever he wants. And I don't think that level of trust is there with Browning the way it was with Burrow. Like Browning, again, when he's going well, we'll get the ball out quickly and put it in a place where his guys go make a play. But I think they give him a little bit more in terms of, the old adage, scheming guys open, that people always complain about in the Bengals offense. And the thing that I think actually earned Zach Taylor some street cred from the film grinders back in 2023 was like when they had to adjust the offense for Jake Browning, they actually did. And he showed that he could tap into things that weren't just, our skill guys are better than yours and our quarterback's better than your defensive coordinator, and they're going to put the ball in the right place.
So I looked it up. It was the game tying play to send it into overtime.
Yeah, there you go.
So essentially, right? God damn. Okay, so we got a bunch of 5'10 guys dealing with that group. Okay, let's go back to this run game. So it seems like the problem with the run game is not Chase Brown, who everyone likes. Am I wrong in that perception, or is that maybe... Is it more of an offensive line thing? Is it a design thing, or are there things Chase Brown should work on?
There's probably a little bit of all of the above, but Chase Brown is a guy that I would probably blame the least. Mm-hmm. I think. I think the offensive line and organizational philosophy is that run game, running, blocking, all these things are secondary, and that obviously shifts. I think it's to their detriment. I think that it hangs their pass protection out to dry, and I think that maybe the Bengals just went like a little bit too far with like running game doesn't matter, because in, clock killing situations, it obviously matters. In short yardage situations, you want to have that as an option so teams can't just sell out. And the Bengals don't have a well-integrated play action and run game to the point that teams really disregard their play action game. There's a rep against Jacksonville. It's a really great play between Joe Burrow and Noah Fant early in that game, but the linebackers are dropping before Joe Burrow even turns to fake the handoff, because the way the Bengals are running play action is their guys are just pass setting. And obviously that's the key for the linebackers. And so like, if you're just pass setting in your play action game, and it's that kind of thing where like in the play action game and in the run game, there's some attentiveness to detail in the implementation or the understanding from the guys executing it that maybe isn't where it would be for, the teams that really care about that. I just don't think the Bengals really care about running the ball, at least when they have Joe Burrow. I wonder if that continues with Jake Browning. I think there needs to be more of an emphasis on the run game, but we'll see how that goes this week, because even if you want to do it, because they've tried a whole bunch of things to get to it. They've tried going 12. They've tried different schematic approaches, and you need to have the personnel to do it too. And you guys are obviously very familiar with Dalton Reisner and where the strengths and weaknesses of his game are. And Amarius Mims hasn't really put it together as a run blocker, which wasn't necessarily a strength of his game coming out in the first place, but he had the physical tools to do so. So we were hoping to see a leap from him this year. Ted Karras, I think, starting to show signs of aging a little bit. And then Orlando Brown, while I think he's a good tackle, is obviously well suited to pass protecting more than run blocking. Dylan Fairchild, probably the best run blocker of the group, and he's a 3rd round rookie. So we'll see how long that lasts.
This has to be the largest offensive line that, sorry to focus on the Bengals side so much, but like, yeah, it's the largest. And then also of large offensive lines to be pass blocking specialists, I think is interesting for sure. Because I remember when the Bills had the largest offensive line a couple of years ago, and they were not pass protectors.
Well, part of it is that you have Orlando Brown and Amarius Mims, and those guys are both giants, but like
enormous,
they're
and they're both
suited.
pass protectors. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so
Amarius should be a good run blocker, though. Like,
that was like the conversation about him coming out, right? Like this tackle from Georgia, 6'8", 350. His numbers,
all the athletic tools in the world.
Yeah. His numbers were definitely better as a pass protector coming out, but everyone was talking about his run blocking potential, and we're concerned actually about his ability for his pass blocking to translate to the next level. That said,
and for me, it was like a speed of the game thing for Amarius in the run game, and just kind of not really knowing where you should be directing all of those physical gifts. And I think we're still kind of there in year 2, which makes you think,
are we
how much
in a
is that going to
spot
turn on?
where we're still concerned? Because every time Joe Burrow gets hurt, the conversation is, God, the Bengals don't protect this guy. But it can happen on any play. There have been quarterbacks who've been hurt who almost never get, like Tom Brady got hurt. And that guy gets rid of the ball so quickly, it doesn't matter how good his offensive line is. It just happens sometimes. So what's that like? Is there these are pass protection specialists, but that doesn't make them good at pass protection. It makes them better than they are run blockers. Is there a pass protection problem?
I think there is. I think it's a little bit overstated, but I do think there's a pass protection problem. I think that Jake Browning alleviates that a little bit because he just gets rid of the ball. He's not looking to extend the play like Joe. I think Joe's play style does at times make the line look worse than it is. And I think that sometimes it's not the line. It's the running backs had major problems in week 2. I think Drew Sample has taken a step back this year, at least through 2 games. So, everything small sample size, caveats apply. But I do think there is a protection problem. Like they have a problem on the interior. Dalton Reisner has been probably playing some of the worst ball he's played in the NFL. And I know that Vikings fans have mixed feelings there, but like the difficulty of the assignment in a Joe Burrow offense versus a Kevin O'Connell offense for any offensive lineman is significantly different just because of the preponderance of just straight drop back reps where you're in true pass set situations. And it's just asking more. The run game isn't a weapon. The way the play action game is put in isn't really helping your offensive lineman that much because, like I said, they're just pass setting. So the difficulty, I think, for linemen in the Bengals and Burrow offense is more difficult. I think the problem is a little bit overstated, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Okay, I'm looking up the ESPN pass block win rate.
It's going to be the worst. Yeah, I mean, like it's been in the bottom 5, I feel like, for the entire Joe Burrow career. Because isn't that like a survival stat? The way they do it?
Kind of, right? So if you get rid of the ball in under 2.5 seconds and that will help the pass block win rate. If you take a little bit longer, then it creates problems. So as soon as the ball is released, the counting stops, right? So I think it's a win if you get past the offensive lineman in their tracking data before the 2.5 second mark or before you get rid of the ball. So there is a survival element to it, from my understanding, but it is not purely like a survival stat, like, pressure rate kind of is. So yeah, I mean, all of these metrics have their own like quirks and problems, but it seems like a lot of them also agree that there is a pass protection element that needs to be resolved. Okay, so with that in mind, like you take a look at the Vikings scheme. We just talked about how Browning does have some capacity against the blitz, and specifically has historically had capability against the Vikings blitz. But just kind of excluding that, right, which is a difficult thing to exclude from an entangled conversation. But excluding that, you take a look at this offensive line, you take a look at the Vikings pass rush, which is blitzing a little bit less relative to the league than it did last year, sending 4 a little bit more often. But you've got, Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave. You've got Jonathan Grenard. You're going to bring back Andrew Van Ginkel. You've got Dallas Turner, who's looked all right. You've got like a pretty talented group of people who are non-blitzers, who are pass rushers. If the Vikings do what they did like in the first half of the Bears game, where they only blitzed at like a 20% clip or something like that, 25% clip in the first half, and do drop people into coverage, like, can the pass protection, do you think, against that particular talent level hold up?
I guess I'm curious about what you think the talent level is specifically for the 32.5-year-old Hargrave and 30.5-year-old Allen at this point. Like, how much are those guys?
In week 1, they combined for like 14 pressures.
Yeah. So like compared to their primes, would you say like still like 80% there?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way to put it. I would say as pass rushers, as run defenders, I think they've aged significantly worse. But that's which is why the emphasis on the run game for me this week is there. But like, I think if I'm Flores, I am resisting every blitzing impulse in my body to say, let's see if they can block 4.
because they haven't really been able to do so consistently. They've had issues with stunts and twists. This seems to be a recurring problem with the Bengals, no matter who the offensive line coach is, no matter who the offensive linemen are. So I would be looking, if I were Flores, to resist the blitz and test the waters, right? Because if you can't get pressure with 4, any defense is going to thrive in those situations.
Yeah. All right. And you've mentioned specifically that Browning struggles when there's pressure in 4-man rush situations. So that's probably something worth exploring.
He did definitely in week 2. Like, okay. He doesn't have Joe Burrow has pretty good splits when pressured. And I don't think those splits really hold up for Browning the same way.
Okay. Let's see if I can find. I'm still playing around with like True Media. It's like my first day with it, and like a kid in a candy store again. But just add a filter, maybe. Hold on. This is so exciting.
I'm excited for you.
Okay, so QB blitzed, no. QB pressured, yes. Over the past 4 years or whatever, 5.77 yards per attempt, 46% completion rate. Passer rating at 25. That's no good.
That's pretty in line with just his overall pressured stats too. Like, I'm looking at his pressured stats in 23. And the pressured splits for Browning in 23 are pretty bad. The turnover worthy play percentage for PFF is 5.5%. The pressure to sack rate, 23.5%, which is quite high as well. High.
Yeah.
So the numbers for Browning when you can get pressure to him, obviously not great. And if you can get the pressure to him without blitzing, which is something that he seems to, the prioritization changes. Like, he understands there's guys coming. He's, I guess, seemingly pretty good at figuring out where the void is then that has been vacated by the blitz and taking advantage of the skill players they have there. So I mean, the splits kind of speak for themselves there, right?
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the defense, which I apologize for. Boy. Well, Trey Hendrickson's good. That's confirmed. I think he ranks second in NGS pressure rate. I don't know where he ranks in PFF pressure rate among all edge rushers in the NFL. And he's doing it essentially without help. And I don't necessarily mean that BJ Hill is a bad pass rusher, although that is true. But rather, he's not getting one-on-one matchups as far as I can tell, especially because the Bengals have the lowest blitz rate of any team in the NFL by actually a fairly substantial margin. This data says 9.8%, and then the next team is like 13% or 13.8. And I'm sure that like accords with like whatever other data that we have. So why?
I don't know why. Ask Al Golden.
Wait. What is your best guess as to why?
I honestly don't know. Al Golden blitzed a lot at Notre Dame, and it was a lot of 5-man pressures. What they've done instead is a lot of 4-man pressures where they're showing guys, dropping guys out, sending pressure from different spots. So there's
still like movement and deception, but it's more stunts and games. And
yes.
Okay.
And even so, like, less blitzing than, even if you count the 4-man rushes as blitzes, like Logan Wilson is their leading pass rusher for a non-defensive lineman. He has 6 pass rushing reps this year. Dax Hill and Demetrius Knight have 4 each. Cam Sample's an end who's hardly played, but Oren Burks has 3 blitzes. Cam Taylor-Britt's come twice on a blitz. Barrett Carter, backup linebackers, come once on a blitz. So it's not like they have anybody that's blitzing much when the highest rate for any of their non-defensive linemen for pass rushes is 6 out of 135 snaps from Logan Wilson.
Okay. Yeah. So, is that like, do we think that is like a coverage concern issue that like they just don't feel like they've got the capacity to vacate, or are they just so confident in Trey Hendrickson and company?
I think it needs to change.
Okay.
I have a really hard time speculating about the why here. I think in week 1 it's because it's Joe Flacco and the Browns, right. And you're like, whatever. Against Lawrence, I don't know. I probably would have liked to have seen a little bit more than they did. They did blitz, I think, a little bit more, but it's not a big part of what they've put on tape so far. Without Shamar Stewart this week, he's got a sprained ankle. I think they liked his week 1 disruption, kind of wasn't there as much in week 2. But you're right that when they do manage to find those one-on-ones for Trey, he's winning them. And so it's a matter of finding them and creating them, because when he does get them, he's winning pretty quick. I mean, it's not like he's playing great tackles. And that's why Christian Darrisaw to me is one of the biggest X factors in this game regarding the no-go decision for him. But against Walker Little and DeJuan Jones, like that's you're dying over there. And if it's a similar matchup, that's a bad place to be if you're the Vikings offense.
What's up with Miles Murphy? What's his whole deal?
Yeah, he's just not very good, I think. Like he's kind of like a fine rotational end, and that's kind of what he is at this point.
Right. Sometimes you just get that in the first round. That happens. That sucks. And so the guy starting opposite Hendrickson is Osai, right? Joe Osai.
Yep.
Well, I mean, was he fine? Is he kind of below the level you'd expect of a starter? I don't know anything about him, actually.
Yeah, I think he is a little bit below average for a starter, at least a little bit, I'd say. Like he showed some serious promise early in his career and then had some injuries, didn't necessarily recover from those injuries. High motor guy, but just isn't winning enough, or maybe within the context of the defense isn't asked to win a lot. Like a lot of the defensive pass rush plan, there are stunts, there are twists and all this stuff. But when you have one guy that actually is good, a lot of it is try to make sure the quarterback doesn't escape and let Trey Hendrickson finish the play. And, obviously some pretty big drawbacks to that plan. You need some other guys that are going to win, and they really don't have that. There's no real talking around that. I think it's finding ways to.
Well, I mean, some of this is what's clearly their philosophy of defensive tackle, right? Because there's nobody here who's even below 305 pounds, which you don't need to be below 305 pounds or 310 even to be like a 3 technique. But it is difficult to find really good pass rushing 3 techniques that are over that size. And I would not regard BJ Hill as one of those guys. So
no, he's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So like what is this again, we're talking about whys and stuff like that, but it seems like this is like a philosophical choice that, these defensive tackles, they're going to do what they do, and it doesn't have to be pass rushing. It kind of reminds me of the Vikings before this year. Or is this just like, hey, these are the guys that were available to us on the market, and we really like Chris Jenkins in the draft, so we just got him, and or is this an active choice, do we think?
I think they thought there was more meat on the bone for Chris Jenkins as a pass rusher that hasn't really showed up.
Yeah.
I think, though, they've passed on the opportunity to draft some of those undersized guys annually.
It's such a shame because of the Geno Atkins legacy, man.
That was going to be the next words out of my mouth. Like, since they drafted Geno Atkins and he had a Hall of Fame level career, they've then decided, you know what, we don't actually like that. We want the other kind of player.
That's bad, actually.
Yeah. Which is like a crazy conclusion to draw when it's the same front office. I know they got him in the 4th round and it was a value pick or whatever at the time. But
since then, like Grady Jarrett and Aaron Donald have done their thing. So
there have been a number of guys that we've wanted them to draft. I think they were going to draft a defensive tackle that we were going to get excited about this year. And then the Arizona Cardinals picked Walter Nolan, 1 pick ahead of them. So
you're probably fine. He would have been too good of a locker room fit, I think, in Cincinnati.
We're going to pick him, though. So
right. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
No, when Walter Nolan is motivated, he's quite good. So I can see why you'd be excited. Demetrius Knight Jr., though, so to talk about the linebackers, I did not super love that pick, but I like Logan Wilson. How do we feel about these linebackers?
Yeah, I think Demetrius Knight has certainly shown the upside that comes along with being an athletic, experienced linebacker. He's not perfect. He's still a rookie, but I feel reasonable about their linebacker play through a couple of weeks. Logan Wilson has been solid. Was particularly good in week 1, was not as good in week 2. The linebackers in general, not as good in week 2. And some of that is Browns versus Jaguars. One of those teams has guys at running back that can really do stuff. And the other one is the Browns. I mean, Bashal Tutin putting guys in blenders for an entire game. Travis Etienne, a little bit more of a threat.
This Dylan Sampson hate, man, I can't stand it.
Look, he was good as a receiver in that game, but the Browns averaged like 2 yards per carry. So,
yeah, no, fair enough.
The offensive, I don't know. They couldn't get it going in the run game at all. I like Sampson. I think he looked hard to tackle. He was an efficient receiver in that game, but
not quite Travis Etienne. No, I get you.
Yeah, there's a little bit more burst and speed and stuff like that. So like when you're challenging these guys a little bit more athletically, especially Wilson, maybe it'll look a little bit worse, but Knight has been athletic. So that's something they needed given the departure of Jermaine Pratt and how stiff he looked kind of in his last days with the Bengals. But I wouldn't characterize the linebacker group as a particularly strong group. I'd say they're probably average on the whole.
Sure. And in this back end, this was like kind of a great unit a couple of years ago, and it just looks completely gone. I guess I like DJ Turner. I shouldn't be too mean. But like, how do we feel about this group of quarterbacks, right? Like Cam Taylor-Britt's a name a lot of people recognize. Like I mentioned pre-show, Dax Hill had a fun highlight I saw in Red Zone, but I don't actually know that much about him. And I don't know, Geno Stone and Jordan Battle both strike me as strong safeties, but they're playing versatile roles here. They're playing cover two. They're switching up who's playing single high. That doesn't seem like a great fit to me, but I could just be wrong.
Jordan Battle's had a remarkably good season overall. He's collected a couple of interceptions through 2 games, which obviously is a sustainable rate that we expect to see him finish with 17 interceptions this year.
I mean, Cam Bynum, we're fans of him on the show, and he's already got 3 interceptions with the Colts, so obviously it's a sustainable stat.
Yeah, he's going to have like 25 picks this year. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Battle has actually been good, and he started his career well too, and then kind of got in the doghouse and was benched for a year. And now he's playing again. He's been solid. Okay. There's limitations.
Is this Brown stuff, or has he been solid?
No, he's been solid.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's been solid. Both games been solid. He's not the best athlete, obviously. He's not like the Kyle Hamilton or whatever your prototypical safety athlete is. Although I guess Hamilton didn't test great, right?
Yeah, Hamilton didn't test great, but we all know.
Yeah. Well, Harrison Smith's pretty athletic too, isn't he?
Super athletic, yeah.
Yeah.
I like to pick Eric Weddle because he was a crazy athlete, but also it's just a fun to pull a guy that should have been multiple All-Pro, but just happened to compete at the same time as like Ed Reed and Troy Polamalu.
Yeah. I mean, he did beat the Bengals in the Super Bowl, so he's got that going for him.
There you go.
I do think the battle's solid. Stone has been better this year. Was a disaster for them last year. I think they're playing to the safety strengths a little bit better in the secondary this year, but they're not necessarily playing to the corner strength outside of Dax Hill. I think Dax is their best corner. He's going to play mostly in the slot, but has some inside-outside versatility. Cam Taylor-Britt, I don't think is going to play this week. He had a hamstring injury on Wednesday, then didn't practice on Thursday. He left practice early on Wednesday and then didn't practice Thursday. So we'll see, but I would be surprised. Does that mean
like Marco Wilson or Josh Newton?
Josh Newton probably would be the next guy up, which is Marco Wilson will be active as a result. He's been inactive for 2 games so far this year. He would be their like athletic backup where Newton is a guy that they think does stuff the right way and understands his assignments and everything and just isn't athletic enough to hang with NFL wide receivers. So that will be a problem potentially this week. But I think DJ Turner's also solid. He's had his issues like throughout the preseason training camp. He had issues. Last week he got picked on. But I think that some of that looks worse than it otherwise would because Al Golden's still kind of figuring out when to pull the right levers as a defensive coordinator in the NFL.
Well, speaking of that, we had this conversation pre-show about their coverages, and the conversation it seems to be a relatively even split between cover 1, cover 3, and cover 6, which for listeners who may not be familiar with what cover 6 is supposed to be, cover 2 on one side, quarters on the other side. So it's quarter, quarter, half, or half, quarter, quarter, depending on how you align the strength and whether or not you think that's different than cover 8 or whatever.
Yeah. Is it 8 or 9?
It depends on whether or not you're asking Nick Saban, I think is the answer.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up, Saban terminology here.
Yeah. But that aside, it seems like the way that they play half field safety is with quarters on the other side of it. There's not really any genuine cover two. And it's, 2/3 of the snaps are with single high, right? Mm-hmm. So that puts a lot of stress on these corners that you just mentioned, like aren't being maybe maximized in this scheme.
Yeah. I think part of the problem is you got a Liam Cohen offense that wants to run crossers, and then you're calling a lot of cover three in the way that Sean McVay used to beat cover three with crossers is
very
part of the problem they're having.
Yes.
And, it's not like Kevin O'Connell's unfamiliar with these concepts. So
right.
I would expect to see that be something that is tested early and often in this game if the Bengals don't have a good adjustment to it. The Bengals did have one really cool adjustment. I think it was out of a 2-man look where there was an under against the Browns in week 1. Jerry Jeudy's running a drag and DJ Turner passes it off to Jordan Battle so that Battle can attack it from depth. And instead of DJ Turner having to navigate, mesh traffic on the crosser, and it was like a 3rd and 7 or something, and Jordan Battle comes flying down from the opposite post, opposite hash, to get all the way down and make the tackle on Jerry Jeudy on the other side of the field on the drag. So that was like a really cool thing they did in week 1.
Yeah.
Out of 2-man, but like out of 3, I'm looking for more help from the weak side on crossers that we haven't really seen them get to a ton. So I do think that there's some adjustments both in play calling in terms of like finding the right lever to pull versus finding adjustments out of your 3, out of your 6 to help a little bit with those crossers too.
All right. So taking a look at kind of the Vikings still without Jordan Addison, but with a guy named Justin Jefferson. I feel like Bengals fans are familiar with who Justin Jefferson
is. Is that somebody they wanted the Bengals to trade for once? I can't remember.
Otherwise, I think it was Jamar Chase wanted to reunite with his old teammate Justin in Minnesota.
Oh, they played together. Interesting.
It's crazy. Actually, I think Joe was there.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Was this like a summer league in high school, or?
I think it might have been like a like satellite camp, like for recruitment and stuff like that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, probably like a Jim Harbaugh outfit if we're all being. So you got Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in the league, and Jalen Naylor, who's averaging the highest average, or who has the highest average max speed per route in the NFL, which is an interesting stat. I don't know if it's meaningful in terms of like talent. Maybe it's more a usage stat than anything, but I find it fun. So it, like everyone else has run like a 4.3 or faster. So in the top 10. So I don't know. Like, what do you feel about this matchup against like, does it change the coverages with Jefferson there? Is it because you don't feel maybe that threatened by Thielen and Naylor that you're not going to adjust your coverages too much? How does TJ Hawkins figure into this? How do we think about this matchup?
I feel like they will have to treat Jefferson differently. I think every team has to treat Jefferson differently. And they didn't really treat Brian Thomas Jr. that differently last week. And he didn't have
but he was a coward in that game, so it didn't matter.
And he had drop issues, both. Yeah. But I feel like you still have to make sure you're bracketing Jefferson when you can. I feel that's the approach the team should take with Jamar, and it's the approach you have to take with Jefferson, and he's still going to beat you at it. That's what I'd be looking to do. If Cam Taylor-Britt isn't playing and it's Josh Newton, you can't ever let Josh Newton get manned up without help, or even in his zone, like a pattern match or anything like that. You can't let him get isolated on Jefferson, period. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can let any of these guys do it, but like I'm giving help on Jefferson and saying they do have athleticism outside of Newton. Like Dax Hill, great athlete, top end athlete. DJ Turner, excellent straight line speed. So I would trust those guys more to deal with stuff that isn't Jefferson, and then make sure I'm helping with Jefferson. But It'll be interesting to see how Golden adjusts. This is really the first alpha receiver that they've been tested with. They have seen some tight ends, and Strange went from awesome week 1 to much less of a factor week 2. And they did face Njoku and Harold Fannin, rookie sensation, in week 1. But I
had Njoku. I remember this. Yeah.
I do not have a great feel for what the approach will be with Hawkinson.
Fair enough. Carson Wentz probably changes how threatening this seems, but I can't imagine him being the quarterback changes coverages, at least in the first half before adjustments, which I don't want to overrate the existence of halftime adjustments. I think that people tend to assume that they exist to a far greater degree than they do. But I feel like you probably just run the same defense until the defense that you would be planning to run with like McCarthy or Darnold or whoever until there's a reason to change it. Right. Like, I don't think. Yeah. OK.
I think Kevin O'Connell is the offense you're defending here more than Carson Wentz changes the math for sure. I think, like I said earlier, the Darisaw question is the big question. Yeah. If he doesn't go, then, that changes the math in the trenches significantly.
So what are the odds in this? Are the Bengals favored? I don't know anymore.
No. Vikings have 3 points, I think.
How do you feel about that?
Last I looked. Yeah, I guess it's fine because I think they were favored even when Burrow and McCarthy were scheduled to play in this game. And then they both got hurt and the line barely moved for the loss of Joe Burrow. So I don't know. I feel like it's a difficult place for the Bengals to go win a game, but to me, it's kind of coin flippy, and that's kind of where you're at when you're at 3-point home favorite territory.
Yeah. I mean, the home advantage has moved down historically. So like Vegas has adjusted. So it's no longer like home is 3 points versus neutral.
It varies by home field too, right?
By the stadium. Yeah.
What's the Vikings home field?
I think it's not quite Seattle's, but it's pretty high, relatively speaking. It's like 6th, 7th, 5th, something like that. Cool. So in this case, because it's a little bit coin flippy, you probably would, in theory, take the Bengals to cover. This is not a gambling podcast, but like it gives us a good gauge on how we feel about relative strength.
I think the range of outcomes in this game is pretty wide.
That's fair, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think that like the variance here, big variance, like a couple turnover prone quarterbacks, things could get weird. I thought week 2 was going to be like a relatively normal game for the Bengals, and then Joe Burrow exploded his toe. And like this game, I feel should be very weird, but I could also see if Darisaw plays
being weird. Which of those franchises have ever had a weird game, man? I don't know what you're talking about.
Definitely neither. But like if Darisaw plays, I think that reduces the weirdness significantly because then maybe the Vikings can just like kind of do what Kevin O'Connell wants to do on offense and contain Carson Wentz a little bit.
Right. Dope. Is there anything we maybe didn't cover that you felt it was important to cover? I don't know. Special teams. Evan McPherson's like good. So
yeah, he's fine. He's good. Yeah. Seems better this year.
Sure. Not quite rookie, but still good. Because he had like a nuts rookie year, right? If I remember that correctly.
Yeah, he was very clutch on that playoff run. A lot of game-winning kicks throughout the season and definitely in the playoffs.
All right. Okay, dope. So where can people find you, man?
Yeah, Locked On Bengals is the daily source for Cincinnati Bengals content that we do over at Locked On. I'm there with James Rapien, and I'm also doing a preview show with Joe Goodberry on the First Star Logistics Media Network on YouTube, and that's also the same place, First Star Logistics YouTube channel, where you can find a post-game show with Joe Goodberry and myself as well. So I'm doing a couple shows a week with my old friend Joe Goodberry now as well.
Yeah, Joe Goodberry, who famously predicted after the Bengals lost rookie season with Joe Burrow would be good, and everyone made fun of him, and then the Bengals were insanely good.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, they should go to the Super Bowl this year, and then they did.
Yeah, and everyone's like, "Are you
4-12 or whatever?" And Joe Burrow's ACL exploded.
Are you crazy? And it validated him, and then that's life. Thanks so much, dude. Thanks for coming on.
All right, let's go to the mailbag. And the first question is from Skimbleshanks the Railway Cat. The question is, what addiction is hardest to break? Heroin, gambling, or signing Cam Akers?
So for people who have read my piece on gambling, they might be familiar with the fact that I know people who have gone through rehab for heroin addiction, have gone through rehab for gambling addiction, but no one, as far as I know, has even had the courage to go to rehab for Cam Akers addiction. So I think by that logic, it has to be Cam Akers, right?
You would think the fact that it's so rare, it's such a rare thing. I think
it's the social stigma of admitting that you have Cam Akers addiction that prevents people from seeking out treatment for it.
So many times he has ended up, at least we didn't trade for him this time, but let's go to Jacket, who asks, for Arif's, it might be Jacket, apologies, for Arif's three-peat corner, Cam Akers me once, shame on me. Cam Akers me twice, shame on you. Cam Akers me 3 times, now what? Also, is the Cam Akers three-peat more or less impressive than the Bears off-season champs three-peat?
So I would say that the odds of being a 3-time off-season champion are lower than the odds of acquiring the same player 3 years in a row. Because how does that even happen? Why didn't you just sign that guy to a 3-year contract? Like, you had to keep acquiring him. You've traded multiple draft picks for the same guy. And also, why didn't another team sign? Well, I guess another team did technically sign him and then they just cut him. But like, that's a free 6th round pick. What are you doing? Like, you could have just, the Vikings have extra 6th round picks this year. You could have just somehow, despite always trading them for Cam Akers, you could have just peeled off a six. Like, what are you doing? It's free real estate. So I don't know.
New Orleans messed up again.
Yeah, which, like, I guess that's not a shock. They have been kind of in the habit of poor roster management over the past couple of years. So, but like, someone else could have picked them up off of waivers and been like, hey, we're going to lose, we're going to cut someone from our 53 to add this guy to our roster, but that guy is going to clear waivers and we'll add him to our practice squad, and then we'll trade this guy for a 6th. It's so easy. So I'm really shocked that no team took that free real estate. As for Cam Akers me once, shame on me. Cam Akers me twice, shame on you. Cam Akers me 3 times, party. I feel like is the only way to end that. That's now we've just embraced it, right?
Yeah,
we're having fun.
You just have to accept that this is where we're going. As far as the fact that nobody picked him up, Green Bay had the opportunity to do something truly hilarious.
Oh my God, that would have been funny.
Yep, and nobody decided it was a good idea. So let's go to Brazilian Tarif, who asks, is the start of McCarthy's career the most medialized of the recent first-round quarterbacks? I don't remember people commenting so much on the performance on and off the field narratives after only 2 games from other quarterbacks. Why is McCarthy drawing so much attention?
So I wonder if there's like a different understanding of the word medialized. So medialized is a pretty rarely used word in the United States. It comes from like probably McLuhan or Habermas or some other media jerk. But it just means like how much mass media kind of influences culture and society, right? I think that this probably just means is McCarthy like the most, are we paying the most attention to him out of the recent first round quarterbacks? And I don't know that we are. Like, I think Caleb Williams is getting a ton of it. I think Jaden Daniels got a fair amount of it, mostly because he played well, but the expectations for Caleb Williams were so high. What's interesting is that it didn't happen to somebody like Josh Rosen, who was also a high first round pick, who failed spectacularly, only got 1 year, right? Kyler Murray, I feel like, didn't get the same thing. So I think that there's something to the notion that there's a disproportionate amount of attention on JJ McCarthy relative to a lot of other first round quarterbacks. Like Drake May is not getting this, but I wouldn't say it's the most, right? Like I think we got a lot more of Robert Griffin and Andrew Luck. I think we got a lot more of not Trevor Lawrence. That didn't happen as much as you might have thought, given the kind of the pre-draft hype. But I think a fair amount of quarterbacks have gotten more attention than McCarthy. But I think it is fair to point out, like, he's gotten a lot of it, right? So I think a lot of
Tua's first couple of games.
Yeah. I think a lot of this is just because the Vikings were so it's such a bizarre decision to a lot of people after a 14-3 season to kind of be very proactive about letting go of the quarterback that got you there, right? Or that helped get you there is maybe a better way to put it. And I'm not saying by the end of the season, we're going to be tired. We're probably already tired of saying, hey, you got rid of the quarterback after a 14-3 season. You got rid of a quarterback after a 14-3 season. We're going to keep hearing that. It's going to get tiring, but that is the fundamental answer to the question, right? Like, why do people pay attention to this? And so I think that's part of it. I think also part of it is just like, dog, he played real bad. That's part of it too. If he played average, I think a lot of people would not find it interesting to have this conversation. So, I don't know. Like, I think that it's just it's the expectations that the Vikings produced after last year's performance, the decision making to go for a young quarterback, and the fact that he in particular played really, really poorly. Like, Bo Nix, I think, outperformed expectations and didn't get this kind of media attention. Michael Penix is in a very similar situation to McCarthy. He only had 100 dropbacks last year. And he's not getting this much media attention. But I think it's because it's such an interesting moment where the Vikings seemingly kind of screwed up for a first round guy when they didn't need to. Like, a lot of guys who screwed up for a first round guy needed to grab someone, so you can kind of like excuse them. But like, here, the Vikings kind of didn't need to by public estimation.
It's absolutely the situation of they gambled and lost, and they're cashing in their chips from last season when they said that the Vikings doing this was going to be a bad idea. And so they're just enjoying being right.
Which I understand.
Yeah, which if anybody understands that, it's Arif Hassan. But it's absolutely, to me, that's kind of what it boils down to is, this is one of those situations where at the moment, I look right, and so I need to dunk, and I need to dunk on people. So let's go with that. Gaming Nerd asks, are we going to have enough people to be able to play football on Sunday? When are open tryouts? And do you think we assemble a full squad from randoms off the street? Man, that injury report is a long one.
It is. It's more than the number of players that a team is allowed to have on a field. Okay, I'm gonna Google this. The Mark Wahlberg movie where he tries out for the Eagles.
Yes.
It is okay. I was going to say Invincible, but I was like, wait, that's the rugby movie. Okay,
yeah, a lot
the rugby
of
movies
movies
also called. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. So, are we going to get an Invincible scenario? And if we do, is Kyle Slater going to show up? No, but I think the Vikings, because the injury report is long in part because it also includes people on last week's injury report that we kind of reasonably expect to play, right? So Andrew Van Ginkel, I think we kind of expect to play. And he's on the injury report because you kind of have to put somebody who is going through concussion protocol on the injury report. Harrison Smith, I think we kind of expect to potentially play. Again, we don't know. I'm not saying that we've gotten reporting that we expect him to play, but the idea was that he wasn't going to go on IR, and in order for that to kind of pay off, that has to be sooner rather than later. And then, Jeff Okuda's on the injury report. He's fully practiced the whole time. Jonathan Bernardo's on the injury report. He missed one play last week. So the number of players here is a concern, right? But some of the players that are listed here are players that we don't really think are really going to miss the game. Like Christian Darrisaw, didn't practice today because it was a day of rest that he's been kind of taking every week regardless. And it sounds like he'll be full go on Friday when most people will be listening to the show. And so he's going to participate, but he's going to be on the injury report. So it's a long injury report, but a lot of these guys aren't really going to be missing the game. So it's not that concerning. We're already aware of McCarthy and Ryan Kelly and Justin School. But Christian Darrisaw is going to replace School, hopefully. And Harrison Smith might be coming back. And Andrew Van Ginkel and Jeff Okuda. Jeff Okuda is definitely coming back. We expect Andrew Van Ginkel to come back, maybe. Grenard is going to be back. He was already a full participant. So it feels long, but whatever. And it's not like Austin Keys, who is a great special teams player. I don't want to undercut him. But that's not who we're concerned about, right? So it's long, but it's kind of deceptively long.
Let's go to Minneapolis Cinnamon Cheerios. who asks, is Carson Wentz the hardest challenge yet for the Kevin O'Connell school for quarterbacks who can't throw good? What would it mean for Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings if Wentz plays well enough to receive a starter contract for another team next season? And would that be worth its own extremely esoteric entry into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, it would. The last question, yes. The constantly producing third round compensatory picks from throwaway quarterbacks would be outstanding. That's so funny. But at some point, like, and I mentioned this on another show where it could kind of be like Kyle Shanahan, where like you can produce a lot out of every single quarterback you have, except the one you spent a first round pick on. For some reason, that guy is just not working out. And I'm not saying, we know that McCarthy is a bust. I'm just saying it would be funny if Carson Wentz looked good. And then you just kind of have to stare down the barrel of like, oh, okay, what does that mean for this guy then? But yeah, if you get another third round compensatory pick after like Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones gets a fourth and Carson Wentz gets a third, and I don't know, that would be crazy. But yeah, it's kind of Kyle Shanahan-esque, right? In terms of your ability to kind of turn like CJ Beathard or Nick Mullins. They share that guy. Or Mac Jones, apparently. Or I don't know what to do with Jimmy Garoppolo because it feels like he's a starting quality quarterback and then like he's a backup right now, right? So who knows? But like he's constantly doing that.
He plays and then he becomes a backup. Like it's just
right.
It turns out playing is just not a strong suit.
Well, so like if you're like the 30th best quarterback in the NFL every single year, like you only get to start every so often. So that's probably kind of what's happening.
Yeah, they only let you do that.
But yeah, that's my answer to that.
Let's go to Delta BC Dad, who asks, for Arif's perverse incentives corner, I think we're about to go off the rails here, what kinds of indirect and direct benefits would the CEO of a sports content producing organization need to receive in order to use their platform to minimize the impact of public criticisms from others made about a team's game day roster construction? Could this be additional access to limited resources or nominations to work on the boards of public charities?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm just going to direct you to the 60-minute drill episode I just recorded yesterday about the problems of sports journalism and increasing corporatization and the problems of access journalism within sports. It kind of just hit on it without even knowing that was the episode we're recording. But what kind of direct and indirect benefits would, say, I don't know, Arif Hassan of Wide Left need to receive in order to use, let's say, his platform to minimize the impact of public criticism from others made about a team's game day roster construction? So what incentives would I need to receive in order to minimize, so to make the team look good, essentially, right? So could be additional access to limited resources, nominations for the board's public charities. I mean, I don't really... that's not a strong incentive to me to nominations to work on the boards of public charities. But
no, you don't care about people enough for that.
Well, how much does a board member do? That's not helping people. Dude, come on. Additional access to limited resources. It depends on the resources. Delta, if you got limited resources, let's talk.
Let's go to Raul, who asks, for Arif's parenting corner, assuming there is truth to all rumors, what one baby product would you give to Stephon Diggs and Cardi B, and why is it the snoo?
Okay, so people who don't know, Cardi B announced that. Did she announce, or was it just? It was just reported. It's been reported. Yeah. That Cardi B is pregnant with Stephon Diggs' baby. There are rumors out there that maybe she's not the only one at around the same time to find out that they're pregnant with Stephon Diggs' baby. But, I don't want to give credence to rumors, but Stephon Diggs is literally the one who said there's truth to all rumors, right? So
you kind of have to take him at his word, especially when there were reports a few years ago of a Valentine's Day thing over, I want to say, like COVID, when he had a girl on each floor of the hotel.
Yeah.
And it was just going between them. I
don't know how you get stuck in exactly that sitcom scenario. But okay.
I love
although
Lucy.
I don't know.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
bouncing in.
Yeah, like that's just like, hey, this is a sitcom from literally the 30s. Like, what are you doing? But not that I can talk too much, but
50s, but yes, that's and you are yeah. Well,
look,
we'll
okay,
discuss
anyway.
your thruple corner later, but go on.
No, God, no, that's not okay. Anyway, I don't feel comfortable with the baby shower for Stephon Diggs in general. I don't know if okay. So for people who don't know about the snoo, it is a baby bassinet sleeping system, right? Because it's not just like a thing you put the baby in, but it has like a little wrap to make the baby feel hugged. And I assume it has been thoroughly tested to not be a choking hazard because there's like a lot of parts here. I feel like, I don't know, man. I'm not recommending this product. I don't know anything about it. I'm sure there are people who know a lot more about. Oh, they sell used snooze. I guess that makes sense because you can't use that for very long, right? So I don't know, man. They cost $1,700. Why? Oh, okay, hold on. What costs money in it?
Arif
I'm going to play this video.
Arif is doing a deep dive right now on the snoo, and I appreciate that because he's doing this.
A smart sleeper is connected to an app? Why?
The same reason why wipe warmers exist. Because somebody thought it would be a decent idea, despite the fact it's an expensive thing for no good reason.
Okay, this ad looks like AI.
Yeah, it's everywhere. And it hurts. AI text and AI imaging is slowly but surely making me sick at work. And it's only we just talked about it a couple days ago, but like a week or two ago, it is only getting worse. Funny. So go on.
It seems like what it does is it uses some algorithm, one might call it AI, to move the baby a little bit while it's sleeping to maintain a kind of rocking motion to make sure it stays asleep. Which, I don't know, called me old fashioned, but like you could just like there are swings that do that, and they don't cost $1,700.
Typically, no.
Typically, I mean, you could get one that costs $1,700 for sure. But okay, so that's why you could buy it used for only $1,200, and the $1,075 when you sign up for emails and texts. Well, that's a great deal, obviously.
Clearly.
And you could pay for it with the health savings account. That's wow. Okay, anyway. Sorry, I learned about this 5 minutes ago and I hate it.
But it is a great deal if you do it the right way.
Yeah, of course. And if you do that, if somehow you use your own health savings account to buy a gift for someone, sure, Stephon Diggs could use this, even though he could very easily afford it more than you can, probably. So, give him a snoo or a pacifier, one that won't be a choking hazard, maybe shaped in such a way to prevent it from being a choking hazard.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes these are made of metal, sometimes they're wood. Or ask Arif in the DMs for more information and send him screenshots of what you're thinking of using, and he will let you know. The correct answer here is the Nose Frida. I actually sent an email a long time ago to Drew McGarry's Fun Bag. It's the only time I've ever gotten an email answered in the Fun Bag before, and Dusty helped me punch it up. And it was talking about how much I hated using those like bulb nose suckers because my son hated them. And every time I was having to do it, I would have to like hold his arms down in a weird way. And it felt like I was interrogating my son like he was a terrorist. Like, where is the missing Iranian? Like, as I'm using the sucker to like get stuff out of his nose. And he would just scream and scream. It was the worst. But the Nose Frida like sucker thing works so much better. And I'm good. I was happy to see they're like now available like everywhere. And they're only a couple of bucks, and it was absolutely worth it. And I no longer like felt like I was waterboarding a child when I was trying to make it so he could breathe. So
wait, was that a negative for you? I was under the impression that was like an added bonus for you.
For you, it's you and I have different opinions on the whole like raising of children thing, as we've discovered over the years. But no, I do not enjoy. Unlike you, I do not enjoy the screams of children. Let's go to our next. Oh, also by Raul. Also, rank these Diggs moments: Minneapolis Miracle, 96 questions, and Family Feud.
God. Okay, so Minneapolis Miracle. If you don't know, I'm not going to explain it to you. I'm sorry. 96 questions is incredible. So Brian Robinson, who's wearing jersey number 96, had this like little thing where you go around the locker room and ask people in the locker room a question. The one that went viral is the one where he asked various members of the Vikings locker room who they wouldn't let their sister date, which let's like kind of ignore the construction of like letting, whatever, right? They all said Stephon Diggs, and then they all would ask for clarification as to why, gave pretty vague or non-reasons. Like Adam Thielen was like, well, he's just not somebody that you would take home to your parents, so therefore he can't date my sister, right? Like that's not like an answer, right? That's just like saying the same thing in a different way. But we all kind of got the impression like, oh, that sucks. They all think he's a bad boyfriend. And then Diggs was trying to date two people at the same time at Valentine's Day at the same hotel.
All rumors. That is all you need to say to that. Turns out, truth to all rumors.
And then Family Feud, the part that I remember from the Family Feud bit is the very end. He's doing to get to 200, right? And so Steve Harvey, right, is asking him like the final question to the very end, the final round, right? And so you got like rapid fire. You got like, I think he's the first one to go. So he's only got 30 seconds to answer. And it was finish this, leave it blank. And so, my first instinct was to say alone. That's what most people probably would answer on a survey, right? Leave it alone, right? Or leave it be, right? And he said in. And Steve Harvey was so flabbergasted that he couldn't get to the next question. And then the buzzer sounded. And then Stephon Diggs' team was like, that was crazy. And they're all dying. And Steve Harvey was like, okay, I gotta let you answer the final question because I couldn't get to it in time. So I gotta let you answer the question. Like he was just like, like it was, and like Diggs had no idea what he did wrong. Is the best part. He's like, what? That makes sense.
Like Adrian Peterson told me that one. Like, what's the big deal?
Right. Yeah, what's going on? So yeah, that's my favorite one because I think that's the least known one, and it's just as memorable as the other ones.
It's truly fantastic. Bring Ed Ingram back asks, for Reef's not financial advice corner, if I was going to bet my life savings in a way to take advantage of the possible or not Fed rate cut this week, how would I best go about this?
I mean, the Fed did announce the rate cut, right? 0.25 percentage points. So that means that the price of loans has gone down. So you could take out, say, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 loan, up to you, really, and then bet it all on the Vikings money line in this week's game, where we have two backup quarterbacks. I can't see that going wrong. Right?
You and I really need to become honorary members of the Sickos Committee for the things that we end up suggesting or supporting, whether it's fantasy or here. Clearly, we are sickos of a high caliber. You suggesting betting 5 figures of money on a game where 2 backup quarterbacks are starting? Beautiful. No notes. Let's do this. I'm selling my car. Let's do it. We're putting it all on black, baby.
All right, let's go.
Let it ride. LeVar Bolsharif asks a similar question. For our Reef's gambling corner, how big should I order my crippling gambling addiction? Medium, large, or medium, large, or large, small?
Okay, so on the Viking Squad show, Sam has created this Byzantine structure for how we are required to perform our bets because we're like sponsored by FanDuel, probably. I don't think it's DraftKings, so it's probably FanDuel. And so it's because I kept on not losing by betting the minimum every single time for like multiple years, because there was a loser's punishment, but not a winner's reward. So I was like, oh, I just don't want to lose. So I just kept on betting the minimum and everyone else was betting whatever. And then they realized like, oh, we should also do that. So it made the game boring. So Sam created a system where there's 3 ranges of bets you can bet from, like a small, medium, and large. And you're required to bet a certain amount from the large bin, a certain amount from the medium bin, and a certain amount from the small bin. And so because it's a range, we have to say stuff like, could I have the smallest large bet? Or could I have the largest medium bet? Because like we want to bet a ton, but we don't want to waste one of our extremely large bets, or maybe we want to burn through our large bets, but we don't want to expose ourselves to a ton of risk. So we do that to get the small. Like, it's tough, and it's Sam's fault. So how big should you order the crippling gambling addiction? I would go with the large small. I would say you want to experience it for sure. That's something everyone's got to go through, but you don't want it to kind of overwhelm your life. And so if it's a small, then that's nothing. What kind of addiction is that? So you got to go to the large small. So you still have like the weightiness, the substantiveness of it without kind of the overwhelming shame and loan shark style debt.
No, it's much better to be in a situation where you sit there and go, whoa, I cannot do that again. I cannot lose that amount of I'll be able to pay rent this month, but I'm not eating. Like you can those moments as opposed to they're coming and breaking my thumbs.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go to Football's Misandrous Niche, who asks, for Arif's Ireland corner. As a domestically present fan of the Minnesota Vikings in the Republic of Ireland, we would appreciate a level of cultural interlace of equal value. Considering the amount of immense misery the Minnesota Vikings cause people on a yearly basis, despite seemingly good quality, I have determined that under this framework, the only applicable comparison is a short review of U2's seminal 1980s album, The Joshua Tree. Please succinctly summarize your opinion following a more complex analysis on the album by referring to a Vikings game, Josh Freeman as the worst, Minneapolis Miracle as the best.
So the way the end of this question is phrased comes off like a prompt that one would give an AI bot. So I did that. Mind you, I really despise the use of AI in creative work, but this was funny. So
as Arif and I off the record have said that the usage of AI is for memes and answering viewer questions. So here we are.
Yeah, there's no real ethical use of creative AI generation, except in the context of memes. And answering user questions.
Sometimes you just need to make an image of Joe Buck staring into the sun. Like, I don't see what the problem is. I wasn't going to Photoshop that. And
sometimes it didn't really get what you were going for, so you got to generate that image 5 or 6 times and burn a couple of trees. Yeah. Apropos for the sun. Yeah.
Well, yeah. There's an old Metalocalypse episode where they're trying to record on water for some reason, and every time they do this, like they show like part of the world is dying as a result, like one. Like for each take, and it's all awful takes, but like it's just like the lead singer going just drunk as hell, but like all of these trees die, all of these like parks explode. The waters turn green from pollution, and it's just one guy going boom, boom. It's kind of like that every time you're generating AI, right. It's turning into that.
Yeah. So to minimize the impact, I did use like the least token intensive model I could find, but I mean, don't do this. Here's what ChatGPT said. You're blending the tortured yet hopeful experience of being a Minnesota Vikings fan. I hate the way this thing talks. With the emotional roller coaster of the Joshua Tree. I like it. No, you don't. Let's see if I can tie this all together. Analysis of U2's The Joshua Tree, parentheses 1987, : The Joshua Tree represents U2's grand exploration of themes of faith, longing, disillusionment, and hope. From the opening track, Where the Streets Have No Name, to the haunting With or Without You, it's a record that promises transcendent beauty, but remains rooted in the stark realities of human suffering. U2, much like the Vikings, balance between greatness and despair, with each song capturing a raw, sometimes painful journey. Their attempt to reconcile personal pain with a spiritual hope is all too familiar to anyone who's suffered through a Viking season. M-, ultimately compelling, yet often marred by unrealized expectations. Now, to bring this into the Vikings framework. Worst, Joshua Freeman's Monday Night Disaster 2013. Here I want to point out that it really did not capture the spirit of the prompt at all, because those were just two examples of games that exist in Vikings lore from worst to best. The question wasn't, can you pick something to compare to the worst and pick something to compare to the best? It was, pick a similarly notable game that lives somewhere in the middle that best approximates your review of U2's Joshua Tree. But it couldn't figure that out because it's dumb. Worst, Joshua Freeman's Monday Night Disaster 2013. Freeman was, in essence, U2's Silver and Gold from the Joshua Tree, an attempt at something bold that ended up being a catastrophe. I'll admit, I have never heard this song, so I'm sure James has. When Freeman took the field for that infamous 2013 Monday Night Football game, it was a moment of sheer inexplicable misery. The anticipation was high. No, it wasn't. Fans were hoping for a spark. Kinda. And yet Freeman's performance, an atrocious 0 TDs and 3 ints, 3.0 pass rating. Was it actually 3? I gotta check.
We have to fact check AI for a moment. And how dare you put me in the realm of a YouTube listener? How dare you?
Look, you listen to a lot of music. That's all I'm saying. Sometimes in your course, as somebody who professionally listens to music, you listen to music that's not very good. That's not an insult.
I have listened to more U2 than I care to admit, mainly because that stupid album found its way onto my iPhone, and every time my car started, it would try to go through my iTunes library instead of Spotify. And so it would just play randomly whatever was in my iTunes library, which wasn't a lot. So it would just go through that album a lot. And be like, I don't care about Joey Ramone. Please stop playing that song.
All right, so his actual stats in that game were 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. So it had the number of touchdowns correct. And I believe it confused his yards per attempt for his passer rating, because he had 3.6 yards per attempt, but a 40.6 passer rating. So not that anyone should be surprised that they got this wrong, but they got it wrong. An atrocious 0 TDs, 3 ints, 3.0 passer rating was a soul-crushing reminder that sometimes the promise of greatness can turn into a train wreck. I don't know about the promise of greatness, man. I don't think anyone... I was the most optimistic.
Greatness.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, the whole deal with this AI stuff is that, like, it aggrandizes it. Like, it tries to hit these, like, muted highs and muted lows, but it really needs to do it. And so instead of being kind of natural about it, it does stuff like that, right? But like I was at the time, I was really optimistic about Joshua Freeman. I was really a big fan of the signing. And then I found out he was going to start within like a week of showing up. And I was like, no. I wrote a whole article about how this was a good idea. And now he's going to look horrible and I'm going to look like an idiot, which is exactly what happened. But like, I was maybe the most optimistic among this kind of group of bloggers evaluating the quality of the signing. And promises of greatness was crazy. I was like, hey, 3 years prior to this, he had a pretty good season, was like my argument, right? Anyway, promises of greatness. Similarly, the Joshua Tree can feel like that moment of anticipation with its lush instrumental landscapes and wide-eyed idealism, only to have the listener eventually realize that the existential questions it raises, like the personal pain explored in tracks like I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, sometimes don't offer the clear resolution one hopes for. Wait, no. Who listens to music hoping that like every song cleanly resolves the emotions it brings up? That's nuts. That's crazy that it would suggest that.
Yeah, a psychopath does this.
Right. Who listens to U2 being like, all right, well, this melancholy period is going to wrap up at the end? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's something that the main character in No Country for Old Men would do. Like that's the only person. That's the only person on the planet who would like think this is a good idea.
Right, best Minneapolis Miracle 2018. Now the Minneapolis Miracle was something of a revelation. That last second impossible play by Stephon Diggs, hey, they got it right, against the Saints in the NFC divisional round was pure ecstasy. It was that rare moment of Vikings glory where hope didn't just exist. It exploded. That sentence doesn't make sense. And U2's The Joshua Tree has a few of these moments too, especially tracks like With or Without You and I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, where you get a sense of a journey that is hard, but worth it, filled with moments of sublime beauty that make the struggle feel meaningful. That is The Joshua Tree. For every Josh Friedman disaster, there's a Minneapolis miracle in the form of songs like Running to Stand Still, which, while incredibly heavy with emotion, reaches such a depth of beauty and clarity that it reminds you why you keep coming back. The highs, when they do come, feel like they're worth enduring the lows. Okay, well, you've identified one low and four highs. That doesn't make sense. All right. Succinct summary.
Yeah.
Colon. The Joshua Tree is the musical equivalent of being a Minnesota Vikings fan. It's an album that swings between hope and despair with breathtaking moments of grandeur amid the melancholy. Like the Vikings, it often teases greatness but keeps you on edge. It edges you. The highs are undeniable, the Minneapolis Miracle moments, while the lows, like Josh Freeman's performance, remind you of the sheer agony that can come with unrealized potential. But despite everything, you're still here for the ride, hoping for something better in the end. What do you think? Does that resonate with the Viking-like experience?
ChatGPT clearly listens to U2 and not just for like questions. They listen to it recreationally. Recreational listeners. Unbelievable.
Do you think
There's a couple
they were
songs,
big fans of...
I bet ChatGPT loved that album that they threw onto their phones.
That's
Love
exactly
it.
okay. I was going to ask exactly like the one that just came mandatory on all the phones.
Yes.
Do you think that, okay, great, fantastic.
Everyone's
We're on
going
the
to
same
love
page
this.
there.
This is going to be great. No, that's not how any of this works. Dusty asks, before I cancel my Disney Plus subscription, what are the 5 best Pixar films?
Okay, so I asked ChatGPT. No.
I just asked Dusty, and this is no. Oddly enough, I asked my girlfriend on this. Don't tell my fiance. So I asked my fiance, and the answers we came up with were Toy Story, Up, Finding Nemo, Monsters Inc., and The Incredibles. Honorable mention to Soul, Inside Out, and Cars.
Okay, so I haven't seen Soul, so I can't comment on that. But that's not a bad list. That's actually really close to my list. So I went with Toy Story 2. I do think that's better than Toy Story, but it's kind of immaterial, right? Like it rules, right? Then I went, my number 2 is Wall-E, and maybe that's just because I'm a bleeding heart, liberal, hate climate change kind of guy. The villain of Wall-E is capitalism. How could that not be one of my favorites? Then Monsters, Inc. is my number 3, which was your fiance's number 4. Finding Nemo was my number 4, which is your fiance's number 3. And The Incredibles. So we have the same number 5. And honorable mention, I also chose Cars and Inside Out as my honorable mentions, but also A Bug's Life. I thought that was like pretty good. And unfortunately, was it DreamWorks released Ants at around the same time? And that sucked. And so sometimes people get confused and like, well, A Bug's Life? Really? No, A Bug's Life was really good, actually.
Let's go to Damien, who asks, where and when can we get, it says personalized football cards signed, but that's crossed out, pints with Arif next week, and will James be making a surprise appearance? While the strike is apparently now resolved for my union, and I'm very pleased with the potential...
With the resolution,
with the resolution, the potential 3-year deal that we're about to get it. That does not mean I have money in my pocket right now. So, no, I will not be making a surprise visit to London or Ireland. This is going to be Arif solo. Arif, are you going to make yourself available to the Irish?
Yeah.
That's a hell of a sentence, by the way. I apologize for how that came out.
Yeah, well, I mean, we kind of specialize in perfectly acontextual sentences, right?
That's how we get so many great episode names, yeah.
That's entirely it. So the plan is that once I land in Dublin, I'm going to be going around to pubs close to where my hotel is and figuring out which ones of them are comfortable with like a recording and also have outlets near some seats, because Nick Farabaugh of Penn Live is also going to be in Ireland, and we're going to record. I'm going to do the interview portion for Norse Code with him, and then I'm going to be on his podcast, and it would be fun to do it at a pub, right? And so, why not just make that also where we hang out and stuff? So I'm going to go to a couple of pubs, ask them about this plan or this idea, tell them hey, I don't need it to be quiet or anything like that. The atmosphere is going to be great for it, but I am going to need an outlet. So from there, we will determine kind of what pub we'll be at. And I don't know, I'll put it in the Discord. I'll probably tweet it out. I'll ask Nick if that's all right. But it sounds like that's going to be a good time. So we'll figure that out. But I haven't decided on a pub. See, the problem here is because James isn't coming and he does all of the work.
I honestly did not mean I meant to be muted there.
James would like any producer would investigate kind of, hey, maybe where's a good place to record? Maybe I'll call a couple of places and give them a heads up, maybe multiple weeks beforehand.
Yeah.
And that makes sense, but I'm not doing that. So we're gonna figure that out.
Yep. We're doing it live. That's
yeah.
That's Arif's new mantra. It'll be fantastic. I'm sure it'll work out fine. Speaking of things working out fine, let's go to Room Don Sharif, who asks for Arif's Thruple Corner. If a member of a thruple takes a 2-week vacation to Spain and Dublin, but is worried about slipping in the standings for 2 weeks, what Groupon would be best to buy the other two to remind them how generous the other member is, but it's boring enough where they would miss said member because they would be low-key bored without them there, but not obvious where it looks like they were purposefully doing so and costing them thruple points?
Relationships are not competitions.
Lies.
Don't think of relationships okay, so between you and your fiance, who's winning?
Well, I made dinner tonight and it was awesome, and it was the 40 cloves of garlic chicken. So
that's such a good recipe.
I'm winning at the moment. But
is that how she sees it?
After tonight's dinner, yes. But tomorrow, after I get home from announcing, we're going to talk about wedding stuff where she's done a ton of research and she is winning. She is absolutely winning when she breaks out that information. So
great. Okay, so relationships are not about winning, and that's crazy. Within the framework of the question, what kind of Groupon? First of all, who still uses Groupon? I haven't opened that app for 10 years. I think the last time I did it, I was like, oh, here's a great deal on a massage. And then I called the massage place about it, and they were real. No, I'll say it. They were real dicks about it. So then I got turned off of Groupon. And so I don't know anybody who's been using Groupon since then. What kind of Groupon would be good? Probably something slightly less exciting than an escape room. Maybe an improv show, but that show's B team.
Like an improv show, but it's Tuesday night.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's probably it, where it's oh, that's really nice that you did that. They were fine. That kind of thing, right? So something like that. Or if you're not into escape rooms, because it's I feel like a lot of people don't think they're into escape rooms, and then you take them to one and they have a pretty reasonably good time. So it could be at that level. It kind of depends on where you're at. For me, that would be an awesome time. I wouldn't miss you at all. So probably that, unless you're the linchpin of your escape room group, in which case that absolutely, because they will just miss you.
It'd be this is why we keep them around. It's not just the bills. It's because they would have been able to figure out that stupid magnet on the wall.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's all contextual. That's probably how you would do that, but don't do that.
It's a good way to get up. Nope, that's a good way to get up in the. There's no
stand. You shouldn't have standings.
The thruple standings are important.
No, they're not. They're the least important thing. Actually, don't do that.
We're going to push through that and go to my 5-year-old plans to replace me, who asks, question for Arif's quarterback corner. Is Kevin O'Connell making a mistake starting Carson Wentz instead of the new arrival, Desmond Ridder, considering his success with Joshua Dobbs?
Oh, yeah, because Desmond Ridder doesn't know anything about the offense. I mean, Carson Wentz reasonably doesn't know anything about the offense, right? Like, he's only been here for like 3 weeks, so... but yeah, like in that world, the order would be Desmond Ridder, Carson Wentz, and then Max Brosmer, who unfortunately has learned the whole playbook. Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. Yeah, well, because I think, start with Desmond. Yeah, I think this is a good point. Actually, start with Desmond Ridder, and then 3 weeks from now, when he's learned too much of the playbook, then you go to the guy who mostly knows the playbook, Carson Wentz, and then 3 weeks from then, presumably JJ McCarthy will be healthy, but if he's not, or we think he's bad and he was secretly benched, then you can go to Max Brosmer, and then you can start some of the most toxic quarterback debates ever. I don't know if people remember the Joe Webb Christian Ponder debates from like way back. Those sucked. That was toxic Vikings fandom.
That was not a good time to listen to podcasts, be on podcasts, or report on the Vikings.
It was brutal, man. I think on the Daily Norseman comment threads, they just called them the death marches. Like, it was bad.
Like, you didn't just like make it through the season. You survived the Ponder years. Like, it was unfortunate. Question for Arif's international travel corner. How would you feel if you saw Brosmer and Ridder playing meaningful snaps at the international games you spent thousands of dollars to attend?
What, are you kidding me? That'd be so funny. That would mean Carson Wentz isn't playing. That's hilarious.
Like, Wentz was benched. How could I feel better about the situation?
Yeah, that's so good for me. Are you kidding me?
Question for Arif's thruple corner. What is a thruple, and where did you gain all the experience to have a corner dedicated to it? This is an important question.
I didn't gain any experience. Someone just asked a question. That's how all the corners work. I don't know anything about all the things that you're asking me, but the whole bit is that I have to pretend, and I didn't even do that with the thruple corner, and you kept asking me. And so that's not a thing, okay? I don't have thruple experience, okay? So we gotta like quash that one. So
do not put it in the paper.
Don't put in the paper. I asked Google, which I guess is the second use of AI. I didn't even think about that. The second use of AI in this episode. Don't boycott this episode, actually. Probably a useless thing to say at the end of the episode, but like boycott it.
If I wanted to be effective, I could put the title of that, but no. Boycott this episode.
It's like the opposite of steal this book. It's exactly. Boycott this episode. A thruple, also known as a triad. Side note, that sucks. I hate that name. Like thruple is like a kind of a disgusting name. It doesn't feel good saying, but triad sounds awful. A thruple, also known as a triad, is a romantic relationship involving 3 people who are all equally committed to one another. I feel like that's aspirational, right? Equally committed is like the goal, but we don't.
You have your favorite. Just admit it. It's fine.
Yeah. Unlike a threesome, which is purely sexual, a throuple is a long-term intimate partnership where all 3 individuals have a deep emotional connection. And presumably because it's a relationship, duties and obligations and you like meet each other's emotional needs and stuff like that. So that's what a throuple is. I am kind of curious about you spelling it incorrectly in the question. I don't like do spelling shaming in the mailbag, but it's just like typically, but like every other word in the question is spelled correctly, and you type throuple, and I feel like you have to understand like where the word. I guess you don't know what it is, but like it's clearly a portmanteau of couple and 3. So
it's a bit like the spelling bee where they ask like country of origin, and he's trying to get context of it. So he's just trying to find out more about it, and as a result, he ends up spelling it incorrectly.
Greek? Is like a Greek base?
Jesus. Finally, question for Arif's relationship corner. The last several episodes, you've given fantastic advice on how to be the winner in a throuple.
No.
So I
do not try to win in your relationships.
So I'm hoping you can help me win in my couple relationship. My wife was gone tonight, and I very easily managed to cook and clean up after the dinner, bathed both kids, and even ran errands at the farmer's market. This is typically far more than my wife is able to manage when she's home alone with the kids. In NFL parlance, how do you recommend I taunt her without getting a taunting penalty?
Okay, first of all, so she clearly doesn't listen, because that's an insane thing to say. I can't believe you said that like that. Okay, so the taunting penalties exclude slashing your throat, pantomiming a gun, and for some reason wiping your nose.
And thrusting too many times.
Right, of course, naturally. I say for some reason. I understand it's like sliming, and I get it. But like, also, what? And you can't like stand over anyone. You can't like look at them like while you're flexing and stuff. So turn to the crowd, in which case, I guess your kids or the people at the farmer's market, which is way funnier, and just start screaming and flexing, I think. That's not going to get you a taunting penalty, but it's very clear that you're taunting. So that's probably what I would do, especially if you take your wife to the farmer's market with you the next time you go, and then you just go, like, I hated all of this myself. I got the broccolini, I got the Brussels sprouts, I got the local bacon. I rocked this, and then you flex, but also you yell.
Similar along those lines. When you go back to the farmer's market, greet all of the vendors by name and get a high five.
Oh, that's really good. That's awesome. That's one that you might actually do.
Yeah, that's the way. I love that this has just turned into like winning the relationships become the meme this year. I love this. No, this is absolutely, I endorse
Do you
this
know
sort of behavior.
How much growth I had to go through to avoid trying to win in relationships? How much of like my journey as a partner has been about not winning in relationships? This is so toxic to me. You are damaging my mental health. This is me talking both to James and to the listeners. I now that I say this out loud, I realize that damaging my mental health is a benefit and not a problem for listeners now that I think about it. So I shouldn't have said that, because now I've encouraged all of you.
3 words, Arif. 3 words. Prove me wrong.
Nope, we're not doing that. That's not part of the look. We can't. Last guy you said that got proven wrong right away, so we don't want to invite that kind of juju. We gotta be out of that one. Thanks for listening. You can listen to my other podcast, 60-Minute Drill or Viking Squad Show. I also write occasionally over at Why I Left Off Football. I've got a piece coming out about the Vikings pass rush schedule, because it's pretty incredible who they have to play. Matt Freeze has a piece about the Vikings offense and how it might not be terminally broken. We're just plowing through. And I already mentioned on the last episode of my piece going over the Vikings game, and I got a couple of pieces coming up that I'm pretty excited about, including something about the college football playoff. Maybe we're still workshopping that piece, and we're getting a person to do an NFL roundup based off of vet stats, hopefully. So we'll see about that. Thank you for listening. Stop talking, James.
So for Arif, my name is James. Thank you guys so much. And just remember that the horrors persist, and so does Carson Wentz. And we'll be back soon. Norse Code is the largest and only division of Norse Code LLC. You can find Norse Code on the Daily Norseman, SB Nation's Vikings blog, at dailynorseman.com. You can also find it on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and wherever fine podcasts are aggregated. Our Vikings blogger extraordinaire and generally useful human is Arif Hassan of... and he can be found on Twitter at Arif Hassan NFL. I am your producer and host, and my name is James Pagashnik. You can find me at the show's official Twitter feed at NorseCodeDN or at my personal account at Big Mono. If you'd like to donate a few bucks to the show, you can do so in a couple of different ways. You can go to patreon.com/NorseCode and donate there. For $3.50 a month, you get bonus material and more. You can also go to paypal.me/NorseCode for a one-time donation, or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com and pick up some Norse Code merch. Any questions or comments that cannot fit in a tweet can be sent to norsecodepodcast@gmail.com. On behalf of the Norse Code staff, we thank you so much for listening.
Our formula is this.
All things are possible through the power of Ben DiNucci.